Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Justin here, and yeah, I know it's been a while since I've done a review on anything on my YouTube account, and with the English release of Yakuza Like a Dragon just about a month away from now, I thought this would be a good opportunity to give my review of the Japanese version, which I've had since launch from January. And it's originally called in Japan Ryuga Gotoku 7 Yami to Hikari no Yukue. Or is it Hikari to Yami no Yukue? I don't have the game on me right now, so I can't really check it. I'm just too lazy to look up on Google. And yeah, even though I'm kind of by myself right now, I'm still wearing a mask, and I caught a cold. Don't worry, it's not coronavirus or anything like that, but other than that, I'm okay, or so I think. But yes, let's get to the review. And of course, in the US, or internationally, it's available for the new Xbox consoles, the present Xbox consoles, PS4, with future PS5 releases next year. But right now, it's only in the PS4 in Japan right now, and I doubt it'll get any Xbox releases in Japan in the future, considering Xbox has always been an abysmal failure in Japan, to the point that my brother has suggested that Xboxes in Japan should be buried in a nuclear waste fill in Fukushima, in the same way ET cartridges for the Atari were buried in a landfill in the Alamogordo Desert. And yeah, moving on. Okay, so Yakuza 7, or Ryuga Gotoku 7, or Yakuza Like a Dragon. It takes place in the year 2019, so last year. So when the game begins, of course, there's not going to be any spoilers, but whatever I can say hasn't already been said in the Japanese trailers or the international trailers. But yes, the game begins on December 31st, 2000, just before 2001 New Year's. This time you play as Ichiban Kasuga, a lowly member of the Arakawa Gumi. And yeah, so Ichiban has a very unique background. As you know, in the original character, Kazuma Kiryu, his parents were gunned down by Kazuma, and there's like this old school, mentality that, hey, if you kill someone, they have kids, then you kind of got to be responsible for those kids. And this is also shown in the prequel movie of Yakuza, of what happened with Yumi and how her parents were killed in a gun battle between two conflicting gangs, and how she ends up in the Himawari orphanage. But yes, as for Ichiban, the character was born and raised in the old Togenkyo Soplan. Yeah, so as for having to play the original Yakuza games prior to playing this new one, do you need to play the originals? Well, yes and no. As for where Ichiban was born and raised, the Togenkyo Soplan, when he comes back to it, it's in a blown up state, and what happened there was a result of what happened in the events of the first Yakuza game. And that kind of does help that part, but they kind of go over that in this release. But yes, so in case you don't know what a Soplan is, if you're not familiar with the franchise or Japanese prostitution, Soplan is kind of a legal brothel in Japan. I'll get back to that later. But yeah, so one day after New Year's 2001, his boss Arakawa tells him, like, hey, one of our guys shot this guy from this gang, and we need you to take the fall for him. And Ichiban is willing to take the fall. And how he gets into the Arakawa Gumi, he's been a member since he was a teenager. And I won't get into how, since it's not revealed in the trailers, how and why he became part of that gang. I won't get into that, but all I can say is that he owes Arakawa his life, and he owes him a big favor, and he's willing to take the fall for the next 18 years or so. Sorry for the sniffling. But yeah, so after he gets out in 2019, he returns to a Kamurocho that he recognizes and not recognizes. I mean, when he's in jail for almost 20 years, things change. He's now in a world where people can use smartphones, and he's now in a world where people are vaping instead of using regular cigarettes, even though regular cigarettes are still common. So he does have some minimal troubles adjusting to the new society. And as revealed in the trailers, he does try and reunite with Arakawa, only for him to shoot him. And as revealed in trailers and other preview material, the Tojo Kai has been kicked out of Kamurocho, and Arakawa has sold out to the Omirengo, the Osaka gang that's pretty much the Tojo Kai has been in war with for most of the franchise here and there. And after Ichiban is shot, he wakes up in a homeless community in Yokohama, and he's in a place called Isezaki Ijincho, which is loosely based off Isezaki Chojimachi. And from there, he tries to, let's say, get back on track. And there he befriends Namba, one of the homeless people. He does have a unique background, and I don't want to spoil his story. He plays a very unique role, that's all I can say. And he's a pretty cool character once you get to know him more. And then later on, he also, I don't want to spoil it, but of course, I won't say how and why, but one of his other allies is Adachi, a former police detective for the Kanagawa. He's still officially part of the Kanagawa police force to a certain extent as a driving instructor. I'm not sure how it is in some countries, but licensing centers are run by municipal polices. Sorry for the construction noises. But this is the only time and availability I have to do this video. But yes, and then later on he meets other unique allies like Saiko, a hostess, Zhao, a member of the local Chinese mafia, or the Hanping Yuma, and one character, what was it, Hang Junhee, I'm not going to spoil that. And there's one quote-unquote, optional character, Eddie, who runs this company. And together they unravel the mysteries of, the underworld of Yokohama, and what does it have to do with the Tojo Kai and the Omirengo. But yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of the story. And of course, some characters from previous installments, they come back for this one. And if you've seen the trailers, you already know Kiryu's kind of is back. So is Majima. So is Saejima. So is Daigo. And they all have their own roles to play, considering the nature of what's going on with the Tojo Kai now kicked out of Kamurocho. It only makes sense that these characters remain in the franchise and play their role. That's all I can say about that. And yeah, so that's it for the story. I could go a bit more. Yeah, there is a villain in this, as revealed in the Japanese trailers. It's Ryo Aoki, the governor of Tokyo. But of course, as revealed in the trailers, it's Ichiban's former associate, the son of his boss, Masato. But I won't explain how and why that happened, but you'll have to play the game to find out. Like I said, the only spoilers I can share is what's in trailers and preview materials. Okay, so of course the whole controversy is switching it from the whole beat 'em up style and then making it a traditional Japanese RPG. Some people don't like it, and some people are open to the change. So here's how I look at it. I mean, Mario at one point had an RPG for the Super Nintendo, and it turned out to be one of the best, not just one of the best Mario games, but one of the best Super Nintendo games. Even though it became an RPG, it introduced new elements, and of course, it used familiar elements for, longtime veterans. And I think Like a Dragon achieves the same feats. It's still essentially Yakuza, but it's just gives itself a new flavor. And it does it for the right reasons, not just because of Ichiban being a fan of Dragon Quest. It's because you're now playing in a party. You're not a one-man army just like Kiryu. Normally, you're going to play as Ichiban, Namba, Adachi, and Saiko. And because of this dynamic, I think the turn-based RPG mechanic is a very appropriate inclusion. And it's not just the turn-based mechanics that define it. It's, of course, other qualities such as the job system. And the job system is, of course, a good homage to traditional RPGs like Final Fantasy, specifically 1, 3, 5, which use the job systems well. And the jobs available you can get in Like a Dragon are very appropriate to the franchise. Not just the franchise, but of course to Japanese modern culture. I mean, you can be, each character has their own default job. Like Ichiban, he kind of has 2 of his own exclusive jobs. One kind of changes here and there. Like, first he's just a Yakuza, then that same job becomes a freighter. And then he gets a unique job called a hero, where he uses the bat as a weapon. And there's Namba, where his default job is he's homeless. And Hanjungi, his default job is he's a hitman. And then there's Eddie, her default job is she's a secretary, and so on. And then the male characters and the female characters all have their jobs that they can share. Like for the male characters, you can be a street musician, you can be a bodyguard, you can be a priest, a SWAT officer, and a rock and roll star. And for the women, they can be hostesses, they can be dealers, they can be anegos, which are an old school type of Japanese female gangster. So they're pretty funny, and they're also really cool, each of their own unique special attacks. And each job has a level of up to 30. And then once you change jobs, some attacks from these jobs will transfer over to other jobs and etc., which is pretty nice. So yes, I'm sure you'll have quite a grind with the job system, and for really good reasons. And the special attacks are really, really cool. For example, with the hostess special attack, like the ultimate one, it's like they'll pretend that they're sitting in a chair, like they're sitting in a lounge, like in a hostess bar, and then the female character will say to the male enemies, like, hey, we can meet afterwards. And then it's just like sort of like a disappearing act or a disappearing special attack like you see in Final Fantasy, but present in a very different way. And some of the other special attacks I don't get, they do get over the top. I won't say what they are, but you'll get a good laugh out of them. That I can promise. And of course, certain items from previous franchises are back, and they're appropriately modified to suit the system. Of course, there are certain stamina drinks that are meant to fill up your health. They still do that. Certain drinks to fill up your heat in the original. This time's for MP, and there are some that can do it for both. So yeah, so pretty much they're all there. And of course, the whole ailment systems there, like poison, head, you're dizzy, or you're kind of under a spell. Something you would see in a traditional RPG, like how you can seal someone's movements or statuses. That's applied here too, and you can get certain medicines that can cure those ailments. So for those that love traditional Japanese RPGs, I promise that you're gonna love this. And what's also interesting is, of course, the summoning system, which is, of course, a trope of the Final Fantasy series. What's funny about the summoning system in Like a Dragon, I'm not sure how they're gonna do this in the English version, but in the Japanese version, it's called Delivery Help. It's written like this in Japanese. Yeah, so this is called Delivery Help. Hopefully you can see this. But the Delivery Help, it's sort of, what's it called? A play on delivery health. Delivery health. So you're just changing these two characters here. Um, So, pretty much what delivery health is it's a semi-legal form of prostitution in Japan, where it's just a call service, but they can do everything short of penetrative sex. And yeah, so this kind of goes back to the story of how this kind of goes back to the story. So one of the subplots in the Yokohama is there's this activist group called Bleach Japan, which has been featured in the trailers. If there was a Japanese version to, let's say, Jerry Falwell, I would say this is kind of a group, like they're against illegal immigrant workers, illegal businesses, and prostitution. Yeah, so in a sense, prostitution in Japan, the legalization is really, really weird. As long as it's, what's it called? As long as it's not penetrative sex, it's legal. So pretty much everything you can think of, it's legal in Japan, and pretty much Bleach Japan is trying to, like, let's say, redefine that particular law to a certain extent. That's also one of their roles. But back to the summoning system, since it's sort of a parody of this prostitution system, instead of using MP to do these summons, you have to pay with money. But when you use a summons the first time, it's free, but after that, you gotta pay money. One summon is like 10,000 yen, one summon is 20,000 yen, one is 50,000 yen, one is 100,000 yen, and so on. And some summons you can only use in the day, some summons you can only use at night, and some summons can only work on human enemies, and they won't work against animals or machinery. So that's pretty interesting. But you'll get a kick out of the delivery help system, and you can get these summons by doing certain side quests, and some will join your cause. But yes, what else is there? The mini games. Wow. Of course, you can go to the arcade. In Yokohama, there are 2 arcades you can go to. You can play Virtua Fighter 5, Hang On, Space Harrier, Fantasy Zone. It's kind of funny when you're playing the game at the beginning, which takes place on December 31st, 2000. You can play Virtua Fighter 5, but Virtua Fighter 4, Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown more specifically. But it's funny that like 7 months later, on Virtua Fighter 4 wouldn't be up till December 2000, July 2001, I believe. I can't say at the top of my head, but I know that Virtua Fighter 4 came out sometime in summer 2001. So I think that's pretty interesting. But then again, in Shenmue in 1986, Sega Saturn somehow exists. But yeah, of course the traditional arcade games. There's also darts. What else is there? Of course you can do karaoke, but this time it's not the karaoke con. Well, in English we say karaoke, but in Japan it's karaoke. But there's no karaoke con. You do the mini games at a bar in Yokohama. The bartender is a familiar face once you get to see him. And of course, certain songs are back, like Baka Mitai, Like a Butterfly, Machine Gun Kiss, and there's some new songs too. Yeah. Oh yes, another unique mini game you can play is that Ichiban, he sort of inherits a business called Ichiban Confectionaries, and it's yes and no like the real estate game from Zero when you play as Kiryu, but instead you start as this confectionery company and you buy properties, and then you get people to run these properties and they help you make profits. And every 4 turns, you have to do a stockholders meeting. And the stockholders meeting is pretty funny. You have to talk to a panel that's say anywhere between 3 to 5 angry stockholders, and you pick a panel of your own to make these stockholders happy. And win or lose, you get about 3 million yen for every stockholder meetings you do. So 3 million yen, I would say that's about 30,000 US dollars. So yeah, I do, and you can buy many local properties in Yokohama. For example, you can buy Landmark Tower. You can also buy the Akarengan, or the Red Brick Warehouse. You can buy the Marine Tower. You can buy the, the amusement park, Cosmo World. So you can buy a lot of famous landmarks through this company, and then you can make lots and lots of money for this company. But whatever profits they make, it stays with the company, and you can only get money just through these stockholders meetings. But yeah, speaking of Yokohama, that's where I've been living for the last 5 years. So yeah, how well does Like a Dragon capture Yokohama? I say it captures it very well, especially the Yamashita Park area, but it's called Hamakita Park. It almost feels like the real thing, just about. And also, there's Chinatown. The Chinatown is just amazing. Of course, Isezaki Road, Hinodecho, and some parts of Sakuragicho Station, but what's it called? I think it's called Jinnai Station in the game, but it's a little more condensed than the real life Yoko, even though it's much bigger than a lot of the previous areas from the previous games, such as Kamurocho, based on Kabukicho, or Sotenbori, which is based on Dotonbori. Even though it's much bigger than those previous areas, it does feel a little more condensed compared to the real thing. But I remember that the staff has acknowledged that they do make some changes that make the residents or people familiar that say, hey, what's that? Yeah, that is kind of true to a certain extent. It does capture the spirit of Yokohama very well, of being this cosmopolitan historical city. I think what it exaggerates a bit is, I think some geographical locations are kind of changed, like the So plans or the certain bars. They're in this area when they should be in this area. But it's kind of not a big deal. But I say it kind of exaggerates how, even everyone in Yokohama will admit that the waters are dirty, that's true. But I think the games exaggerate how dirty the water is in Yokohama. The game makes it looks like 10 times more dirty than you would see in real life. I wouldn't say that's a complaint, but I would just say hey, just don't look too much into it. That's all I can say. Of course, it's just I say, hopefully it will encourage people to visit the real life Yokohama. For the last few Sundays, I've been going to the real life area where it takes place, and I really do enjoy it there. And what else is there that I can share? Another mini game. I'm not sure if it's a mini game, but you can sort of take Ichiban to a vocational school to get some education. Through this vocational school, you can take tests on various subjects, such as animals, sports, the history of Sega, the history of the Yakuza franchise, music, whatever you can think, geography, whatever you can think of. Yeah, I remember I first took the sports test. And for every test, there are 5 questions, and minimum passing, I think, is just 3. You got to pass at least 3 questions. I remember I took the sports question first, the sports test first, and many of the sports were shit I couldn't even I never considered doing. I remember the first few questions were about winter sports. Like skiing. Like I don't remember the question, but I remember it was about skiing. And it's like shit. I can't even answer this question in English because I grew up in California, the Philippines, and Arizona. I'm like, what the fuck do I know about skiing? I mean, the only questions I could answer were about basketball, baseball, and boxing. But usually after you finish the test, they show you what you got wrong, and they'll tell you the right answer, and then you could like take notes and just pass it again. And yeah, some of the questions about Sega are very unique. Like they'll say questions like, which console did Sonic debut on? Okay, of course, like for example, the selections are the Mark III or the Master System, the Genesis or the Mega Drive, the Saturn, the Dreamcast, and so on. So, of course, you answer Mega Drive, or that's what the Genesis was called in Japan and Europe. And a lot of the questions also pertain to Sakura Taisen, especially the first 4 games, which are exclusive in Japan. And of course, I'm hoping that the Sega team of the translation team are modifying the questions to suit Western audiences who never got to play Sakura Taisen. But yes, I think you'll get a kick out of the testing questions. Yeah, so after that, what else is there? Of course, you can do conversations with your party members. Like when you pass by a landmark, it's like, oh, one character will say, we'll talk about like, hey, why don't we check out this restaurant or something? And they'll talk about like the food there. One of my favorite conversations, two favorite conversations, and they both involve Zhao. Like when you take him, you take him to one of the arcades, and he talks about when he was a kid, he loved playing the Dreamcast. And he also makes reference to like when the VMS batteries die out, and then when you turn on the console, it makes that beeping noise. And another unique conversation takes place in Chinatown. And I think and the reason why I love this conversation is it will probably be a very difficult thing for the translation team. Like he explains that there's a difference between a dragon, or they say in katakana English, dragon, and ryu. And ryu means dragon. And like he explains like I think I would modify this between explaining what's a European dragon and what's an Asian dragon. Like he talks about like, hey, like Ichiban will say at some restaurant in Chinatown, like, hey, that dragon is cool. And then Zhao will say, oh, you're thinking of the dragons from Dragon Quest. What makes Asian dragons different from Europe? Of course, I'm sort of localizing the translation in a way. Like he talks about there's a difference between ryu and dragon. But here was how I would translate it. I would just say, the European dragons you're thinking of from the games, they have wings and feet. While the Asian dragons, they have arms and they don't have any wings. So I thought that was a pretty unique way of looking at it. And yeah, moving on, of course, this time with Ichiban, he has a tattoo which looks like a dragon, but he also explains in one of the initial conversations, it's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, if you remember from the original Yakuza game, of course, Kiryu has a dragon tattoo, and Nishiki, the villain, had a tattoo of a koi, or a, what's it called? A koi fish. The English doesn't come to me at the moment. A carp, yeah, carp. Yeah, so this is also applied in Pokemon, where Asian mythology, like a carp, if it goes up against a stream, it'll eventually become a dragon. And Ichiban's tattoo is a representation of that, and how it's supposed to signify that he has a great destiny ahead of him. And I thought that was a really good touch to that character. So yeah, what else can I share about the game? Oh yes, another mini game, Dragon Kart Racing. Yeah, I didn't write this all down, just going to the top of my head. But yeah, the Dragon Kart, of course, it's a spoof of Mario Kart. You just ride around Yokohama and do crazy things, and you can customize your carts. And with the coins you can collect prizes and so on. And if you've played the demo already, which was available in the Eastern Territories, it brings back a certain character, and you'll get a kick out of it. But you'll finally learn his real name, strangely enough. I don't get why they didn't give him his real name in previous installments in which the character was used. But yeah. The music. The music is pretty intense. It'll get you in the mood, and it just really captures the comedy, the drama, and all the emotions you can think of with this series. The voice acting in the Japanese version, it's just tremendous. I understand that the international release is going to have an English dub. Yeah, as a purist, I'm going to stick to the Japanese, but based on what I've seen on the internet, the dub looks promising. I understand that certain actors from Persona games and the Judgment are back to play characters in this one. I completely hated the dub of the first game. I couldn't even get past the first chapter, but the dubs of, let's say, Judgment and Fist of the North Star, they were decent from what I played. My brother has the copies of those games. But I understand they're really going all out. They're going to make English versions to the karaoke songs, and I appreciate that they're doing that. I understand, even though this is a game, in my opinion, that should be stuck to in Japanese. I understand that with a dub you can reach a wider audience, and I'm glad that after 15 years, the franchise is getting an expansive audience that it's always deserved. But yeah, so what's the final verdict? I say when I rank this as one of the best games in the franchise. I wouldn't put it in my top 3, but I would definitely put it in my top 5. I mean, after playing Judgment and what they did with that combat system, with how crazy that it went, especially with one of the heat moves where I think it was on Pink Dori next to the Popo, the south side, where if you do it by the street, like an enemy combatant almost gets hit by a car, but like they roll down the windows and then like they get taken away in the car. I was hoping that they would bring that back for 7, but it just wasn't because of the new combat system. But I guess I could give a minor spoiler and say, like, hey, enemies could get hit by cars. And in this game this time, you can get hit by cars and lose health. Yeah, it's pretty fucking crazy. But yes, I think with the nature of Ichi's character, the RPG system is excellent. And you have people with him, so I like the party system. I say if they need to stick with the beat 'em up, stick with Judgment for that. I mean, Judgment went balls out with its combat system, and with Tabo or Tadayuki, I mean, that combat works with his character and his background. You're talking about a guy who mixes street fighting and kung fu. And Ichiban is kind of he's balls out, but he's a sloppy fighter. So I think the combat in its respective game does its job, as in Like a Dragon, while Judgment, it gets its job done for its reasons. So yeah, I say if they're gonna keep using Kasuga or Ichiban as a character, yeah, I say the turn-based combat system is a very good system. Well, if they were to continue with Judgment or Judge Ice in Japan down the road, it can stick with its system. Yeah, as for how it connects with, say, with judge eyes or judgment, you'll see for yourself. Nothing really major, but you'll get a kick out of it. Yeah, with the game, with the way how the game ends, I say at this point a sequel to Judgment makes more sense at the moment, while a sequel to Like a Dragon, I say we can wait on that. And let the audiences, suck in like the whole new system. I mean, if it can work with Mario, then it can sure as hell work with Like a Dragon. Okay, so thank you for watching, and be sure to check it out when the game comes out in your respective territory. And, look forward to other future videos by me.